coming tonight. I'd like to go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the Twinsburg Board of Education. This is Wednesday, February 4th, 2015. Mr. Aho, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Stuver?
Here.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Felber?
Here.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Here.
Mrs. King Criswell is absent.
Yes, she is not stuck in the snow. She is actually traveling in Atlanta on work tonight. So I would like to ask everyone to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we jump into our reports, I do have one housekeeping item tonight for my colleagues on the board. As per information that we received earlier today, we have one agenda item to add to our agenda. So under Agenda D for addendums, I would like to make a motion that we add agenda item I-5, which is new business, and agenda item I-5 will be the resolution that we will read at the time later to consider the trip proposal, overnight extended student trip for the Great Expectations Show Choir to DeKalb. That would be February 14 to 15. So I'll make the motion to add that agenda item I-5. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Felber. Roll call, please.
Mr. Stuver?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes 4-0, and when we do new business, I will read that resolution in total. Well, welcome. Thanks for attending on this winter evening. Certainly the cold and the snow have been on the forefront of our minds. Recently, we've had different opportunities for schools that have had delays or closings. And I just want to make a few remarks about that. The decision to close or delay start times is certainly not an easy one, and our superintendent proactively monitors the weather when the forecast is poor. And this may mean that she's communicating with other superintendents over the weekends, as well as late into the evenings. We receive text messages from her into midnight and then at 4 a.m. the next morning, keeping us abreast of what she's looking at in terms of decision. Usually, the staff, such as Mrs. Powers, Mr. Welker, and other members of our staff, they're out in the streets at 4 a.m. She sets her alarm, she jumps in the car, and she's out driving the roads, as well as Mr. Welker and everyone else. And they're calling the local city safety forces to find out what the police are telling us about the roads. They're talking to the supervisor at the services department to find out what the folks in the plow trucks are seeing. So there's a lot of review of the roads. And I also don't want to forget about our support staff. We have a great support staff. They're keeping our buildings maintained and making sure that our students have a warm place to be when they arrive. Our bus drivers and the mechanics are in there very early on bad mornings, making sure that the buses will crank and start up and that we can get out on the routes. Board members have been in meetings late at night where Mrs. Powers is distracted on the telephone, talking to other superintendents. Mr. Felber and I were in the office at 7 a.m. last Friday, and she was continuing to have conversations with superintendents about the weather conditions. It's really, when you sit in our seat and you look behind the scenes and see all of the conversations and all of the information that they collect to render a decision, it's really amazing how much they do for the district to make sure that our kids can get to school. And the bottom line is that the weather simply doesn't conform to our personal schedules. So sometimes the forecast and the weather conditions allow her to make an early decision, and other times maybe not quite in accordance with what we would like. But at the end of the day, the superintendent is balancing the needs of the district, which is the priority of educating our children and making sure that we're doing so in an environment that is warm, safe, and dry. So from the board to Mrs. Powers, Mr. Welker, and all of the staff that report through you folks, I just want to say thank you for ensuring that our children are transported to and from their homes safely and are educated in our buildings each and every day.
Thank you.
I'd like to turn attention now to the state level. The governor has released his proposal for the new state biennial budget, and as is typical, the reviews are mixed and the information is somewhat unclear, and as expected, there's always a spin that's presented to the media to present a positive message. For example, you'll see a headline that says that schools are receiving an increase, and yet when our financial hawk over here, Mr. Aho, gets the spreadsheet out and looks at the actual numbers, it's going up over here, it's going down over here, and the net to Twinsburg is a minus. So what I would say to the public is just let a few months pass here as the legislators argue about this. We'll keep you informed, and at the end of the day, I can tell you it will probably be a negative number, and be very wary of what you read in the media because it's very well controlled what gets out there. Unfortunately, the topic that's been most concerning for our district that is back on the table again is the reduction of the tangible personal property tax reimbursement funds. There was a memo that I received yesterday, and I quote, "The executive budget proposes to continue the phase-out of these transitional TPP payments." TPP, as we say, was a significant source of revenue to school districts. Back in 2006, this TPP tax revenue was worth about $9.8 million to this school district. That was almost 25% of our revenue. However, back in 2006, when House Bill 66 took effect, the effect was that it eliminated the TPP tax, and it replaced it with a state-controlled tax, which is known as the CAT tax, or Commercial Activities Tax. And although the state has, over the years, provided some reimbursement for that lost tax revenue, it is the intention of that legislation, House Bill 66, that eventually it would eliminate all of that TPP tax revenue that was originally derived. Ultimately, it's replaced the TPP with CAT, and through the process, it's redirected funds away from school districts and into the state's general fund. Since this House bill was enacted, Twinsburg has seen a decrease in almost $3 million as part of that reimbursement from the state for the TPP revenue. And it was our operational change plan back in 2012, 2013 that neutralized the effects of that original lost revenue. And those actions have, in fact, stabilized the reduction of our cash reserve, if for nothing else, at least temporarily. It's too early at this point to clearly determine the financial impact of what this new state budget will have for our district. As I mentioned, we will continue to monitor this, have discussions with our treasurer, and we will voice our concerns to the appropriate legislators. With that, I would like to move forward on a much more pleasant note, and we'll turn our attention to what matters most in this district, and that's the success and the achievements of our students. I'd like to welcome the staff, students, and families from Bissell Elementary and R.B. Chamberlain Middle School. I know that you're here tonight for some very special recognitions, so without further delay, I would like to turn the meeting over to the superintendent for the superintendent's report and some special recognitions and highlights from these buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Stuver. Good evening, Board of Education. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. Board of Education, I was talking to one of the parents here this evening, and the kids don't know me as the person. They know me as the voice because of the phone calls in the morning. So I think I should go on TV now as the voice. Just kidding. But it has been an interesting past couple of weeks, and thank goodness Mr. Welker and our staff is really behind the scenes trying to make the best decisions. They're not easy decisions. They really aren't. I don't think either of us saw the Super Bowl on Sunday as we worked to make that decision happen for the students. But just wanted to give you a little bit of a bright spot there. I'm the voice.
You're the voice.
Wow. Okay. Well, we have students today from Bissell Elementary School and from RBC, and we're going to get to you all in 1 minute. But it has been a really exciting day in our school district. I don't know if you know that today is National Signing Day, and we have 3 Twinsburg High School students who have signed letters of commitment today. We have Twinsburg High School soccer goalkeeper Lexi Cook is going to the University of Akron. Softball player Megan Brown is going to Slippery Rock, and soccer player Susan Diasidora is going to Ohio Dominican. And I know their families are absolutely thrilled, as we are, to support them, and we wish them the best as they finish out their senior year at Twinsburg High School and get ready for a great freshman year at the college level. So congratulations to all those students. I want to thank Mr. Maslona. I know he had families in today for the big important signing, so we thank him for his work behind the scenes to make these special occasions just, you know, a little bit extra special for our families, because these are once-in-a-lifetime kinds of things, and it's important that we celebrate with our kids. February, as you know, is Black History Month, and our schools have all planned lots of activities. If you take a look at my superintendent's message on the district website, we've outlined all of the activities that the schools have planned. Lots of different research projects going on, web quests going on, lots of activities, lots of fun things. So if you're interested to know what we're doing for Black History Month, please visit my superintendent's message on the website, and things are outlined there. Board of Education, it has been a busy week here. It's only Wednesday, but we have started our facilities focus groups. As you know, one of your goals for the district this year is to conduct a facilities assessment and engage our community in a conversation about a vision for the Twinsburg City School District moving forward in time. As we've been saying to our staff members, you know, thankfully, those who went before us were visionaries, because we have 5 wonderful schools that are structurally sound, and we know that our kids can learn and grow every day here. But as we look toward the future, we know that our classrooms of today haven't changed very much since adults have been in school. And so this week we started the process of talking to all of our staff members, engaging them in a conversation about what they perceive as our needs facility-wise and grounds-wise. What is working, what needs to be tweaked, what we need to change, what needs to grow. And we have a couple of focus groups that we'd like to invite our community members to. A special focus group for our senior citizens is scheduled for Wednesday, February 11th, next week, 9:30 in the morning at the Twinsburg Senior Center. So if you're a senior citizen and have an interest in coming out and talking to us about your vision for our school district, we'd love to see you out. And then for all the rest of the community members, the other focus group is scheduled for Tuesday, February 24th, 7 o'clock p.m. in the cafeteria, it's in the Media Center at R.B. Chamberlain Middle School. So please do come out, give us your ideas, because once we collect all of the ideas, the work will then become for Mr. Walker and myself to begin working with everyone to create a strategic plan. Because thankfully, we have a permanent improvement account here in the school district. Thankfully, because we have voters that have foresight, we do have that budget, but we don't want to dribble away funds and not be thoughtful and reflective in what's going to happen moving forward. So please come out and be a part of that conversation and help us make some good decisions as we plan for the future of the Twinsburg City School District. Also important, and I know that if you have a student in grades 3 through 9, you would have received a Blackboard Connect call from me the other evening. Our park assessments will be kicking off on February 18th, beginning at the middle school. And parents, we have a lot of information for you. If you were at the board meeting last time, 2 weeks ago, or if you had a chance to take a look at it on our website, Mrs. Farthing did a wonderful presentation about what the park assessment will look like and what it means for our kids. Beside that, there's a lot of information on the website, so please do visit our website for up-to-date information about the park assessment and what it means for our students and how our parents can help prepare students for success on the park assessments. Finally, as Mr. Stuber just indicated, Mr. Aho and Mr. Welker and I have been up to our elbows today trying to get a grasp on this new proposed budget. It's a very important time for our school district. We need to pay attention to what's going on in the Columbus area. On Thursday afternoon, Mr. Aho and I have another conference with folks from Columbus. We will be bringing forward to our board and to our community the most up-to-date information. But as Mr. Stuber indicated, sometimes some of that first information is very confusing and doesn't tell the whole story. So we'll work through the numbers and be able to provide for our community a little bit more up-to-date information as we come to grasp what has been proposed and what will ultimately be the governor's budget moving forward. So it's important for us to stay on top of all that. So enough about me and about all of this. We have some awesome kids tonight, and we're going to do things a little differently. We're going to start with the middle school first. So if I could ask Mr. King, who is assistant principal at R.B. Chamberlain Middle School, to please come forward. And I think Mr. Felber's helping this afternoon, or this evening. Been a long day. I think it's the afternoon. And Mr. Welker. Middle school students, if you are being honored this evening, if you would please come forward and shake hands with Mr. Felber. He has a pin for you on behalf of the Board of Education. Shake hands with, of course, Mr. King, and standing up here on the stage so that everyone can get for a nice photo at the end. That would be most appreciated. So beginning at the R.B. Chamberlain Middle School, students receiving the honor of Student of of the criteria listed below. Each student has to meet all 6 criteria in all of their classes as the grade level teams decide upon 2 boys and 2 girls to be selected each month from each grade. And here are the criteria. These students show respect, show enthusiasm for academic and extracurricular activities, exert a positive influence on their classmates, exhibit leadership characteristics, exhibit patriotism and democratic principles, and show responsibilities such as punctuality and getting work done on time. So the following students have been selected this month by their respective teaching teams at our middle school. So for the month of January, 7th grade, we have Hannah Moliano, Mason Fletcher, Gianna DeFranco, and Kyle Apple. For our 8th graders, we have Hannah Pickens, Brandon Seymour, Zan Danker, and Jonathan Brooks. Please join me in congratulating these wonderful students from R.B. Chamberlain Middle School. Guys, if you just want to hold your certificates forward, and this is Mrs. Coslow. She takes photos for the school district, and I'm sure your parents would like to take a nice photo of you two for Facebook or Instagram or something. One more round of applause.
As Mrs. Powers has mentioned, the district is preparing for Park, and the name seems kind of silly, Park. It's thrown us into overdrive. There's nothing Park about this test. If you've gone to Chamberlain, if you've talked to your students about Chamberlain, we have been educating your children every single day in every way imaginable, preparing for this test. The state has given us some information, not a whole lot, so we have built on our best beliefs of what this test is going to look like, what it's going to be like, how to manipulate the computers, so on and so forth, to be able to take the test properly. Today we had more training for our staff. I think we are absolutely ready. We have a great plan in place. Mr. Reese has done a tremendous job with the schedule. Mrs. Farthing and the curriculum office did an incredible job training the staff, and our staff has done a wonderful job setting up the kids for success. So while there probably is some normal test anxiety out there, please be assured that I can absolutely promise you that Chamberlain and Twinsburg City Schools has done a magnificent job. I have never seen this much effort going into preparing for a state test as we have this year. The leadership has been outstanding. The students, they understand what's involved and the complexity of what's involved. I do believe they're ready for the challenge. On the fun side of things, boys basketball won the white bracket of the NOC tournament. Girls basketball, we'll just put it out there, clean Garfield's clocks. I think 7th grade won by 28 points last night. 8th grade was down by double. They came back and whooped them. We're getting ready for our spring play. We had our spelling bee. Somebody in the audience won the spelling bee. Way to go, Zan. We just have a whole great group of students at Chamberlain. Please take a look at their website. A lot of our boys came out tonight to meet the new football coach. You know, they may have to push half of us out of our parking spots. So if you see the boys in the uniforms and your car's stuck, just wave them on over. Thank you.
So now we're going to switch gears, and we have some outstanding students from Samuel Bissell Elementary School to recognize. I'd like to ask Mr. Winter to please come forward. He's our assistant principal at Samuel Bissell Elementary School. And boys and girls, just like we had the middle school students do, if your name is called, please come up to the stage, shake hands with Mr. Felber and Mr. Winter and Mr. Welker, and then please remain standing at the front so that your moms and dads can take a nice photo of you. That would be great. So at Samuel Bissell Elementary School, the Students of the Month program recognizes outstanding student achievement at the 2nd and 3rd grade levels. The focus of this recognition program is on citizenship, academics, social, civic, volunteer, or other accomplishments that set these students apart from their peers. We would like to acknowledge the positive accomplishments of the following students. So beginning in our 2nd grade, we have Lucas Elias from Mrs. Holliday's class. Next, we have Evan Schneeman from Miss King's class. And next, we have Chastity Williams from Ziska's class. Okay, moving on to our big kids, our 3rd graders. From Mrs. Dorland's class, we have Zariah Brantley. Next is Ethan Heiner from Mr. Doloresco's class. And then finally, from Mrs. Rinaldo's class, we have Logan Lockamer. Let's give these wonderful students a round of applause. Okay, guys, if you could hold your certificate up so your moms and dads can see them, and Mrs. Kozlow would like to take a nice picture too. One more round of applause for these wonderful Bissell students.
Good job, guys. You can head back. So I keep waiting for one of these guys to tell us that we can sit down, too.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Now, I know you can do better than that. We got a bunch of football players in the house, so I know how loud you can be. So how we doing tonight? Good. All right, that's much better. Thank you. On a side note, we have some staff of the month that we're going to recognize, but on a personal note, looking around, I see you guys in your uniforms. I remember when some of you were walking through the halls of Bissell, and some of you were in my class, and it makes me feel incredibly old. Having just celebrated a birthday yesterday, I feel like an old man. So thank you guys for reminding me that I'm not young anymore. But, no offense to Mr. King or anyone else in our district, but I think at Bissell we have the best staff anywhere, second to none. So it is always a very tough decision every month when we have to decide who is going to be our staff of the month. I want to thank Mrs. Ziska for coming out tonight, Mrs. Holliday, Ms. King, Mrs. Wilner, Mrs. Mold for coming out, braving the elements to recognize students here tonight. But we have two that we have as our staff of the month. The first is Mr. Eustace. Mr. Eustace is not with us this evening, so I'm going to accept on his behalf. But I did want to say something about Mr. Eustace. He's an intervention specialist at our school, and he does such a wonderful job with the kids. But also, he's a bit of a painter. And actually, what he did a few weeks back was he painted a picture of a tiger, and we raffled it off to one of our students. And all the money generated from that went to the Pause on Child Hunger program, which we have at Bissell and at Wilcox as well. And I must say, the response was overwhelming. So thank you, parents. Thank you, students. We sold tickets through all our lunch periods, and after all the money was counted and the quarters were counted and the pennies were counted, we raised $371 for the Pause on Child Hunger program. So that certainly could not have been done without the generosity of all you folks. So thank you very much for that. But our second staff member of the month, she is here tonight, so I'm going to have her come on up, is Mrs. Dreiling. Come on up, Mrs. Dreiling. So Nancy is, she's been with us now for a few months, but she's no stranger to the district. This is just her first year at Bissell with us. So I think she has done a fantastic job. We all do. Working in the office is very difficult, and managing all the phone calls and all of the, just the different things that come up in the office, and she's done a fantastic job managing all that with a smile on her face, and she's a wonderful addition to the team. And she has to put up with me every day, working in the office myself. So in my book, she'd be staff of the month every month for putting up with my shenanigans. So for a while there, as a little story, she would call me Mr. Wilson every day. And finally it got to the point that I now just respond to it. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm like Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace and Old Curmudgeon, but now it's come as sort of a joke, but I will answer to that now. So I really appreciate all the work that she's done in the office. I know Mrs. Johnson does and Mrs. Rawl, and I know the staff really appreciates it too. So congratulations, Mrs. Dreiling. And I'd like to call up right now Mrs. Mold, who is our technology specialist, and she's joined by Xavier Paris and Chloe Watson from Mr. Doloriso's class, and they have been working on something really cool in the computer lab this year, and they're going to explain what that's all about, and going to show it to you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We have this year been working on something that's called the Hour of Code, and I'm going to kind of move over here toward the computer. The Hour of Code is a national learning event that Bissell, and this is all of our students, all of our second graders and third graders, participated in the first time this year. And what it does is it teaches kids the basic concepts of computer programming. Now you would ask, why are we teaching second and third graders computer programming? Well, it's really very important. The ideas and the concepts behind the way that you think are super important, especially as we start to tackle these more complex problems that we're going to see on the PARCC test. As we're trying to create kids who are resilient, who can face challenges, and they can analyze these problems with creativity and innovation, that's one of the reasons you want to teach kids computer programming. The beautiful thing about the Hour of Code is that it puts it in a format that kids are just super excited about. Anybody here play Angry Birds? That is the Hour of Code. Through a series of 20 challenges, you get to write the JavaScript code to make these birds move through a maze. And so today, Xavier and Chloe are going to help me, and we're going to ask Mrs. Powers to come on over, and we are going to work through a couple of the challenges in the Hour of Code. Now, as we were telling Mrs. Powers before, President Obama also participated in the Hour of Code, so if he can do it, so can she. And so if you want to go ahead and take a look up on the screen, the Hour of Code is found at a website. It's called code.org, and this is a national organization that celebrates Computer Science Education Week. And what we want is we want everybody to get involved because it gives you this way to think. And so what the kids start out with, and we'll ask Mrs. Powers to move up to the mouse, is you're presented with a challenge, and essentially you're moving. And they're going to help you. You have two pop-up windows, and so we're going to click both of those purple X's. On the left side, we see the maze, and that's where your bird is. And of course, in Angry Birds, we want to catch the pig. And so we're going to write the computer code to make that bird move forward to catch the pig. And I think Chloe right now is explaining that, right now we had one move forward block. We need to have a second one in order to make it move forward 2 blocks, and then we hit the run button. And we get live. And so before you move on, click that green box right there. One of the nice things about the Hour of Code is it actually gets to show you the JavaScript language. This is a visual language. It's called Blockly, but it's based on JavaScript, and that's a language that's used all over the world and the internet. We want the kids to see that this is real computer code. Beginning computer science kids in college are taught graphical languages where they're dragging and dropping. We want them to learn the concepts, the logic first. Then we can teach you the specifics of the language. And so it's just a really powerful thing. So go ahead and click continue. Let's do one more. Oh. So let's go ahead and hit the refresh button, which is the circle right here. Yep. And we'll see if it comes up. Beautiful thing about the internet, too, is sometimes it doesn't work. The other thing, also try to click the other tab. Yep. Nope, go back to the other one. Yeah, it looks like we're having trouble connecting here, but it goes through this series of challenges, and we start with Angry Birds, it moves on to Plants vs. Zombies, a little bit of Ice Age at the end, and they get more and more complex. So right now you're just kind of moving forward. Eventually you have to do turns. You have to go through the programming logic of loops. You have to do if statements, if-then or if-else statements. All concepts that computer programmers use right now today, kids are learning that logic behind it. There's actually a second version which has Anna and Elsa from Frozen. So it's really just a wonderful program. I'm going to just go ahead and hand the mic over for the last thing to Xavier and Chloe. What was the thing you learned the most or your favorite thing about the Hour of Code?
The most thing I learned was about how to move around and do Hour of Code more like even better than I did last year, because I did this last year and my mom tried to help me.
Awesome. Good job, Mom, for giving this to him. That's awesome.
The thing I like the most about Hour of Code is that it sort of lets you interact with it and like try different things, and it also teaches you code while it feels like fun and games, but it actually isn't.
That's awesome. Thank you. I think as a district we see that the test questions and the problems even just in life, they're getting more complex. There's parts to them. We need to build kids who are able to take these really difficult challenges, break them down, and then be willing to try. Because, things aren't always going to work right the first time. But do you give up or do you keep trying? And I think the thing that I was most proud of when I watched all the kids, all 627 of them, they went through the Hour of Code, is that they didn't give up. And I think truly that those are the kind of kids we want to grow, and those are the kids who are going to be successful in life. So I'm super proud of these guys, and just a huge thank you to Mrs. Johnson and Mr. Winter at Bissell. They supported this program, this STEM initiative that we did for the first time, and just all the staff were so supportive, and it's a great environment, and I can't wait to see what we're going to do next. Thank you.
I had the occasion, I was actually at Bissell doing a principal observation, and one of the things that Mrs. Johnson was doing was she was out and about in the building that particular day, and we happened to stop by the computer lab where Mrs. Mold's classroom is. And the kids were working on the hour of code, and I just happened to walk in as they were starting to engage in this program, and this little guy on the end just lit up like a light bulb and said, "This is so cool." And to see that enthusiasm, kids were so wonderful opportunities of learning. So Mrs. Mold, thank you. I know it's because of you that we're doing this kind of neat stuff at Bissell, and this is the kind of thing that we see throughout our school district. And as you can see, these students are so enthusiastic. And guys, I didn't do such a good job. I guess I kicked us out of the internet. But I'll have to come over, I guess. I'll come over and you can show me how you do this at the building, okay? So Mrs. Mold will let me know when I can come over and you can show me how to do this for a little bit longer time. Awesome, thank you. Mr. Stuver, that concludes our reports for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Powers. I know some of you are here for some other items on our agenda tonight, but for those of you who need to depart because you've got homework to do or whatever it might be, now would be a time that you could go ahead and get your coats and take off. And for the rest, just hang on for just a minute.
I think we do. I want to say it's February 17th, but I thought it was February. I think it's February 17th, the day after President's Day. Oh, no. I'm getting curriculum. Policy was still on, but a curriculum.
It's got to be curriculum.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move along in the agenda now. The next on the list is committee reports, and we do have some committee reports tonight. I'm going to start on my left here. Kathy Turl Waldron and I were at the board office last night for several hours looking over the to-do list with Mr. Welker. So I'll let Kathy give us a little bit of a summary of what we looked at on buildings and grounds.
Okay. So as Mr. Stuver said, we did have a committee meeting last evening, and I have a very long list of things. I'll try to go through them very quickly. Some of them are very exciting, and some of you in here will probably be excited about some of the stuff. The first project that we are looking at doing is the Tiger Stadium turf project. We are looking at replacing the turf in June or July this summer. We're also, while we're doing the turf, we're looking at some draining solutions for the outside of the track. We're also looking at electrical lines for play clocks and sideline clocks. And we're also going to be looking at data wiring, wireless for scoreboards, press boxes, field house, and ticket booths. So we're looking at, for the stadium, quite a few things. The most exciting part for us was probably looking at actual turf and the grass and the different colors and things like that. I know that Mr. Welker and Mrs. Powers have been traveling all over looking at different fields, getting different ideas, making sure that we're getting the best for you guys and for our facilities. So I'm very excited about that project, and like I said, that will be coming this summer. Also, we are looking at projects in conjunction with the city of Twinsburg. We're looking at some swimming pool renovations. With that, we will be seeing some new lane lines and some backstroke flags. And we'll, like I said, be doing this along with the city of Twinsburg. Additionally, we're looking at some tennis court renovations, and that will be renovating crack, fill ceiling, things like that. We are also looking at some hot water tank concerns that we have up at THS, and those are part of the, when the school and the fitness center were built, they are connected. So we do have, we work with the city on those things. So one of the things, like I said, we're looking at is the hot water tank concerns. As far as parking lots, we're looking at the Twinsburg bus band parking lot. That's the parking lot where the buses park up at THS. We are looking, we have the Cost of Freedom Traveling Wall is going to be doing their display there this summer, and we're looking at completing that project after, and hopefully after that weekend and before Twins Day weekend. So there's some logistics there that Mrs. Power and Mr. Welker are working through. But very exciting times. We've got a lot of things going on, and because of the great relationship between the city and the schools, it's great that we'll be able to have that traveling wall up there and then be able to get the project done afterwards. We are also looking at some sidewalk renovations up at THS, and we're also researching other areas over by RBC, the parking lots, Wilcox entrances, and analyzing other areas in the facilities master plan. We are also looking at some roofing. We have some roofing companies that are going to be doing some thermal graphic scanning, and Mr. Welker explained that to us, and if you want to explain that, I think you'll probably do a better job than I would.
Sure. So we're actually going to be doing an independent thermal graphic scan, which basically does a scan of our entire roofing systems throughout the district and identifies which roofs, the useful lives of the roofs, and so that we can develop a 5-year plan and beyond for our roof. So that initially we're building the data for that.
Very good. Additionally, we are looking at additional security cameras, digital radios, GPS systems, and routing systems. We're also looking at reviewing some snow plowing, how we want to handle that in the future, and how we're doing with it currently this year. It's really important that we keep our sidewalks and parking lots clear. So that is something we're looking at, internally as well. We do have our radio systems, and fortunately, we were able to get a grant project, which is very good for our schools. I believe, Chad, you were able to secure that. So great to have him on board with that. When we can get grant money and we're able to do that, it's just one more key piece to keeping our children and our staff safe. So I'm excited about getting, they're called the Marks radios at each building. Also, we're reviewing options of directional antennas for the high school to improve security communications with first responders. So once again, they're right on top of keeping our technology current, keeping everything as it should be so that our first responders are able to do what they need to do if they needed to. As far as technology, we are doing a district core switch upgrade. Right now it's 10 years old, and it needs to be looked at, and we are looking at that. We're also doing a maintenance cycle of computers and projects. Some of our computers in our schools are getting older, and when that we want to make sure that we're current. So like I said, our technology department is really, really good, and they're doing a great job. So I'm glad that we're keeping on that and doing the cycle, making sure that we're keeping current for our kids. Just miscellaneous projects that we're doing: doors, floors, camera repairs, food service equipment and repairs. And the big thing that we've been really talking about is our facilities assessment. That's going to give us a big picture of where we're at and what we need to do for in the big picture. Our buildings, our roofs, our parking lots. We have some pretty big expenditures coming, so it's important that we're being fiscally responsible. And I commend both Mrs. Powers and Mrs. Welker. They're doing a great job of getting, everything put together and making sure that the board is, in the know of where we're at financially and where we need to be and what we need to do to move forward. So that is, I think I covered everything. Yes?
Those are the highlights.
Okay. So that's the buildings and facilities.
Okay, I'll turn to this side.
Well, while you were busy, we had the snow day, so we had no meeting. And
Curriculum.
for curriculum and technology. And I believe it's rescheduled February 17th?
Correct.
Okay, 6 o'clock, February 17th, so that's a Tuesday following the day off of school on Monday. So if you can make it and like join us, it'll be Tuesday, February 17th. And that's it for now until we meet.
Anything on policy?
And we're still
Not
pending
yet.
a date?
We are awaiting the receipt of the new policies.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. I do have some notes from Mr. Shebeck, who is one of our two appointments to the CVCC, the Career Center. Mr. Curtis is also here tonight, but Steve sent some notes about some good news going on at the CVCC regarding Twinsburg students that are involved with the culinary program. So I'd like to read this report that was actually submitted to him through Steve from Barb Hummer, the culinary arts teacher. And I have to preface this with saying that last fall, there was an all-boards dinner at the CVCC where board members from all the representative schools get together, and there's a presentation and a really nice dinner. And I'll stop right there with the dinner. The dinner was prepared for us by the students of the culinary program. And when they introduced all of the students who were at this dinner, both those who sat with us and ate and talked about what they were doing at the school, but then they introduced all of the students that are involved in the culinary program. It was kind of cool that we got to sit there, and every time they announced the student and then the school, I think more than 50% of the kids that were taking care of us that night from a meal perspective were Twinsburg. So the Tigers were very well represented, and guess what? The food was awesome. So, you know, kudos to those kids. Miss Hummer reports that after a great weekend in Columbus, our culinary management team of Tessa Ackley, Natasha Daniels, Aaron Sharp, Ian Meisner, and Stephanie Tolbert brought home a state first place, the only first place that goes on to the national competition. The Pro Start Invitational is the premier culinary completion for high school students, and with the approval of the Board of Education at the CVCC, teams will travel from across the nation, and they're going to Disney World, or Disneyland, I should say, Disneyland. So they're fortunate to be traveling with the culinary team from the Polaris Career Center. Both teams took first place in their categories. The students each won $12,000 worth of scholarship money. These students are now being sought after by some of the top culinary schools in the nation. Natasha Daniels won an additional $6,000 scholarship to the Sullivan University for being the outstanding leader at the competition because her leadership stood out above all of the others. The students were presented a restaurant concept to a panel of industry leaders, and apparently when they made this presentation, there was a pause by the panel who were watching and grading what they were presenting, and it apparently caused a little bit of a scare with the team because there was this pause, and then the judges spoke up and said, "We're not really sure what to ask," meaning they did such an excellent job, the judges had no questions. So our hats are off to the culinary team, the Twinsburg representatives at the CVCC. Very well done, nicely done. So anything else for committees tonight?
No.
Good, very good. Moving on in the agenda to remonstrance. This is the time where we accommodate public participation as a part of the regular business meeting, and we have this agenda item referred to as remonstrance. As is our practice, we ask those who wish to address the board to fill out the blue cards that are found back in the lobby. And I do have one that's been turned in tonight, so I would like to ask Mr. Curtis to step forward and identify yourself, your address, and any represented group that you're representing. And the mic is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Twinsburg Board, Administration, and community. My name is Mark Curtis. I'm at 10472 Woodchuck Court. I'm representing myself, but also as an educator as well, not only in the Twinsburg community, but for the Educational Service Center of Cuyahoga County. Ron, you talked about a little bit about the budget and what's going on financially in Columbus. Well, what I want to talk about, or at least read a statement, is something around funding, but more importantly, something that, if not addressed, could impact future funding for all, not only Twinsburg, but districts throughout the state of Ohio. Our system of school funding has been ruled unconstitutional on multiple occasions by the Ohio Supreme Court, due in part because it's too heavily reliant upon local property taxes. In light of the recent changes in school funding that have adversely affected many school districts, I'd like to bring to your attention attempts to change language in the Ohio Constitution which would further impact how districts are funded here and around the state. Specifically, there are proposals raised by the Ohio Constitutional Modernization Commission to remove or modify Section 2 of Article 6 of the Ohio Constitution. Section 2 of Article 6 provides, in part, the General Assembly shall make such provisions by taxation or otherwise as with the income arising from the state trust fund will secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state. Now, that section assigns responsibility to the General Assembly to ensure not only that public educational opportunities be made available to Ohio's pupils, but also that the level of opportunity meets the thorough and efficient standard. It further provides judicial authority for the courts to review whether or not the standard is being met. Removal of the thorough and efficient clause would remove the constitutional standard by which the courts have adjudicated the adequacy of public education in Ohio. In 2003, the Ohio Supreme Court directed the General Assembly to enact a school funding scheme that is thorough and efficient, as explained in Duralf 1, Duralf 2, and the accompanying occurrences. Now, while that directive has yet to be fulfilled, the elimination of Section 2 of Article 6 will virtually guarantee that it never will be fulfilled. Removal of Section 2, Article 6 would also call into question the ability of the courts to review future deprivations of public educational opportunity. Even if the courts were to review claims of educational deprivation, the standard to be met would no longer be established by constitutional guarantee, but solely by laws enacted by the General Assembly. Without constitutional standard for measurement, the General Assembly could, for example, decide that high school is no longer necessary, or that public education must be funded entirely by local school district revenue. The legislative dismantling of public education in Ohio would no longer be impeded by congressional guarantees. One proposal that's being considered by the committee would be substitute language from the Michigan Constitution for the current language of Section 2 of Article 6. The proposed language states, "The legislature shall maintain and support a system of free public elementary and secondary schools as defined by law. Every school district shall provide for the education of its pupils without discrimination as to religion, creed, race, color, or national origin." Note that both the legislative responsibility and the thorough and efficient language or standards from Ohio's Constitution are missing from the Michigan language. Indeed, a Michigan Court of Appeals has held that the Michigan Constitution required only that the state establish a system of public education without any standard for measurement of the quality of the education provided. Unlike Section 2 of Article 6, the Michigan language would impose no obligation on the General Assembly and create no constitutional standard for judicial review. The recommendations of the Ohio Constitutional Modernization Commission will be made to the Ohio General Assembly for approval and then submitted to the voters for ratification. It's likely that numerous changes will be recommended, some worthwhile, and others, like the removal of Section 2 of Article 6, not. For those who believe that the merits of that system as a foundation of our state's economic and political systems and our nation's democracy, the game will be over before it's even begun. If this result is unacceptable to you, then I urge you as board members to remain vigilant in communicating the impact of this proposal before irreparable damage is done. I also urge parents in the Twinsburg community to contact our elected officials in Columbus and impose this attack on public education. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. And be assured, we have been and will continue to be in contact with the folks in Columbus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving forward in the agenda, we're now to item G, which is the treasurer's report and recommendations. Before I move to the item for approval, Mr. Aho, any comments from the treasurer's desk tonight?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. I would just ask that as we talked before the meeting, just keep us informed as you use your treasurer's network and we see what the state budget's going to look like. I know you're in data collection mode right now.
There'll be a lot of information flying around.
Okay, very good. Okay, the first and the only agenda item under G is G1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the following meeting minutes, the regular meeting on January 21st, 2015, and also the special meeting of January 22nd, 2015, which were sent to the board under separate cover. Is there a motion for this one agenda item, please?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Davis, a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Turl-Waldron. Any comments on this item? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl-Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mr. Stuver?
Yes. And that item passes 4-0. Next on the agenda is item H. These are action items regarding personnel. Without objection from my colleagues, I will read all three together, consent agenda. Item H1, resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the certificated licensed personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit, which is H1, as per the dates, terms, and applicable conditions specified, pending satisfactory ORC background checks. H2, that the Board of Education accepts the classified personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit H2, as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified, pending satisfactory ORC background checks. And finally, item H3, that the Board of Education accepts the supplemental contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit H3 as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified, pending satisfactory ORC background checks. A motion for these three agenda items, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Felber, a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Turl-Waldron. There's a few items here to highlight. Having served in the military, we refer to that as hails and farewells. So I would like to address some of the farewells first and just recognize some of the people that are listed in the agenda who are retiring after many years of service to the district. Mr. Harvey Hoffman has served our district for 7 years and is retiring as a janitor at the Bissell building. I would also like to highlight Julie DeSiena, who has 25 years of service to this district. She is currently serving as an art teacher at Bissell and THS. And also a retirement for Barb Wursler. She is the principal at the Dodge building. And I think we're going to have more to talk about with Ms. Wursler next meeting when we have Dodge highlights from that building. But I think it'll be appropriate at that time to highlight some of the successes that we've had at that building while Ms. Wursler has been the principal there. On the Hale side, we have some new folks joining us. We have Transportation Supervisor Eric Brunton. And we will take a moment here after the vote to say hello to these folks. But Mr. Brunton comes to us into a role to supervise the transportation operations. And this is an area that, with the retirement of Ms. Kathy Hurst, Mrs. Powers has taken the opportunity with Mr. Welker to realign the transportation operations and do so now under Mr. Brunton's supervisory leadership. Also, we have a new teacher in the audience tonight who we will welcome in just a minute. His name is Mike Bell, but I think some of you might know him in another capacity, and I know you're here wearing your shirts tonight. And also under the supplemental contracts, we have Mr. Bell not only as a social studies teacher at the high school, but being recommended to us to be the new football coach. So with that, I've provided the highlights. Do my colleagues or administrators have any other comments before we take the vote?
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl-Waldron?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Stuver?
Yes. That motion passes 4-0, and at this time I would like to take a pause, give the meeting to Mrs. Powers so we could make some introductions and say some hellos.
Well, it is my pleasure, Board of Education, to introduce two exciting new members of our staff. We have looked long and hard for these two individuals, and we want to formally introduce you to them so that our community also has an opportunity to meet them. So the first person I'd like to ask to come forward is our new transportation supervisor, Mr. Eric Brunton. I'd like to read a little bit about Mr. Brunton. As you know, Board of Education, our transportation office is in the middle of a flux state. with Mrs. Hurst's retirement back at the end of December, we realigned some of the positions, and we looked long and hard for an individual to take the helm. And I can tell you, Mrs. Hurst has been gone for several weeks now, and Mr. Valentine, who we have hired as an interim supervisor, has been on vacation for a couple of weeks. He had a planned vacation before he came on board as a substitute. And so we have had pinch hitting going on at transportation. Not only has the weather not cooperated with very cold and snowy, Mr. Welker and Mrs. McKinney have been the interim supervisors. They're at 5 in the morning and staying till late at night and making sure things are running. And so because that has happened, we really understand a little bit about what Mr. Brunson is going to be getting himself into here, because, you know, it's simple to think that we have bus drivers on buses and they ride the routes and they pick the kids up and the kids come to school and have a great school day and then, you know, get back on the bus and go home, and it seems simple. But there's a lot of moving pieces and parts that go into making it look so simple. So, Mr. Brunson, you are welcome aboard, and we're just delighted that you're here. A little bit about Mr. Brunson. Mr. Brunson has a long, many years of experience as an educator in Ohio. He was an educator with the East Cleveland and Shaker Heights schools, and he served as assistant principal at Shaker and Wycliffe for a number of years. For the past year and a half, Mr. Brunton has been the assistant transportation supervisor for the Shaker Heights City School District. And Shaker Heights is quite a bit larger than we are, with a lot more in their fleet. So he's coming to us with a lot of experience. And we're just so delighted that you have an interest in helping us. Again, even Mr. Welker went and got his van license because we were trying to put together some things to make it work. And Mr. Welker will tell you, it's not as easy as it seems to even run the routes and pick the kids up on time. So, Mr. Brunton, thank you so much for your interest in our school district. We sure do look forward to working with you. And would you like to say a few words to everybody?
Sure. I don't think I need this, but
Well, it's on the mic.
it's on the mic anyhow. First of all, to the Board of Education and Mrs. Powers, thank you for this opportunity. I've had an incredible career. I really have. And I look at coming here to Twinsburg City Schools as icing on the cake. I'm very lucky. I wasn't looking for a job. I have a great place in Shaker. They've treated me very well over the years. They've afforded me many opportunities. But quite frankly, I know Mrs. Powers and Mr. Welker from my days on the Board of Education in South Deacon-Lyndhurst, so my hat's off to you. And it's because of them that I was interested in this job. And on top of there, I have friends who live in Twinsburg and acquaintances that live here. And they live here in part because of the great school system that you have. And these kids attend great schools. And by and large, they start their day and finish their day with transportation. So I thank you. I'm excited. I can't wait to get started. And I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
We're just absolutely delighted that Mr. Brunson is joining our staff. He's actually not here until April. He asked to finish up with some responsibilities at Shaker, so we're going to loan him out to Shaker for a while. And Mr. Valentine will be back. He's actually riding a Harley in January and February in Florida. So I don't know if that's all about, but and taking over back subbing, and which means Mr. Welker and Mrs. McKinney can get some sleep because it's been quite. Now it's my great pleasure just to talk a little bit about our new head football coach at Twinsburg High School. This has been quite a process. You know, back in the beginning of the month of January, Coach Chavone stepped down from the head coach position, and we want to publicly thank Joe for his years as head coach of the Tiger football team. But with Joe's resignation, we had a big job to do because we recognize the fact that football in our city is a very, very big thing, and we know that the guys that are on our team are guys of great character, and they were looking for a leader that can take them to the next level. And so we were able to engage a number of great applicants. We had over 20 applications that were sent to the board office. Such great individuals applied for this position. It was very difficult to whittle it down. We then had a committee of 12 members. Some were administrators. We had parents on the committee, community members, coaches, and then we had an expert in the area of high school football that helped us whittle a field of 9 down to 2. And then the administrative team went through another series of interviews and reference checks and such. So this has been a rather long process. I know the guys here were very excited for us to finally make a decision, as were a lot of people excited about the decision. But it is my pleasure for the very first time to introduce our head football coach for the Twinsburg Tiger football program, Coach Mike Bell. Come on up. I could just say a little bit about Mike. Mike comes to us from the Willoughby South Eastlake School District, where he is currently a social studies teacher. So he'll be joining the staff at Twinsburg High School effective August as a social studies teacher. Mike has had a long and wonderful career as a football coach. Started back, I believe, with Maple Heights, and I'm a Mustang, born and bred a Mustang, so I was immediately happy to see that you had applied. Love the Mustangs. Then from there, he coached at Willoughby South as a baseball coach, and then went on to a long and great career at Lake Catholic High School. His career record at Lake Catholic is 94-49, including a 16-8 mark in the OHSAA playoff series. So we are so very delighted and ecstatic that Coach Bell had an interest in applying for this position. Mike has garnered a number of awards, including the North Coast League and Lake County Touchdown Club Coach of the Year, as well as being recognized by the Cleveland Browns as their high school football coach of the year in 2011. So guys, hold on tight. This is going to be the beginning of just some fabulous things for you and for our school district. Before I turn the mic over to Coach Bell, I would like to recognize two of our parents who are in the audience this evening that helped with the interview process. Mr. Bucknell, thank you very much, and Mississippi, thank you very much for your help in getting us to where we are tonight. So I'd like to ask Mr. Maslona to come forward to say a few words.
Thank you, Board of Education, Mrs. Powers, Mr. Welker. First off, I would like personally from THS and our athletic department to thank Mrs. Powers for her leadership throughout this process. She kept everybody focused, and it kind of had a feel of a no stone left unturned search process. And I just really want to personally thank her for everything that she did. Getting to know Mr. Bell a little bit has just been a great opportunity for me, and just to share a little story from my standpoint. During his interviews, I counted the word empathy he used 5 times, and it's very rare in this day and age to find a football coach or any coach who thinks like that. And in addition to his winning record, he cares about people, he cares about his kids, he cares about the parents, he cares about his students. And I'm just very, very happy to have him here, too. So thank you very much. And if we want to ask our players to come on up. First, let's get our THS high school kids to come up first, please, and get on stage.
You guys want to come up and introduce yourself to Coach Bell?
Know you better. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Matt Bucknell. Great to meet you. Great to meet you. Vince Joshua. Great to meet you. Nice to meet you. Hi, Ethan Sippy. Nice to meet you.
And now our Chamberlain athletes, please. Thank you.
How are you? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Good to see you again. Nice to meet you. Yeah. It's nice to meet you.
Coach, if you'd like to say a few words to the guys or to the community.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Mrs. Powers and the rest of the administrative team that I got the chance to meet several times through the interview process, and I want to thank them for the tremendous opportunity that they've given me along with the Board of Education in becoming not only the next head football coach at Twinsburg, but also the opportunity to become an educator in such a fine academic institution. And I'm incredibly excited to get started, and I can't wait to get to know all of you young men a little better. And if you're half as excited as I am, we're going to do good things together. Thank you very much.
And now the football moms wanted an opportunity to come up. So Mrs. Zimmerman, come on down.
Coach, the Tiger football moms welcome you to the district. We're so excited to have you here. And we put together a bag of some spirit wear for you, since you probably don't have any in your closet at home. So your first official bit of Tiger swag.
As I said earlier, guys, this is the beginning of some really awesome things here at Twinsburg City Schools. The high school, the middle school, we thank you so very much for coming out on a snowy night to represent Twinsburg High School so very well. I also want to thank Mrs. Taringo, Mrs. McKinney, Mr. Fantone, Mr. Welker for being part of this interview committee that got us to where we are this evening. We were doing all this for you guys, and we just think this is a great fit. Coach Bell is going to be a great addition to our team here at Tigertown, and we look forward to seeing you on the field and in the weight room pretty soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Powers. And if everybody could just hang tight for a moment, we have a few agenda items that we need to go through, and then we will adjourn the meeting, and that'll give everyone a chance to kind of mill around and get to say hello and shake hands and maybe take a few more pictures if you'd like. With that, Mrs. Powers, I'd like to move on in the agenda unless you have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to action items under new business. I would like to read together all five. Keep in mind that we added I-5 to this, so we have 5 agenda items, all 5 together as consent agenda. Item I-1, that the Board of Education approves the attached listing of items, which is in Exhibit I-1, to be deleted from inventory. Item I-2, that the Board of Education accepts a donation to the Twinsburg High School of a wheelchair from the VFW Post 4929 in Twinsburg. This is valued at $205. That donation was sent to us, and the paperwork is Exhibit I-2. Item I-3, that the Board of Education approves the revisions to the April 2015 board meeting date from April 22nd to April 15, and revising the starting time of the July 15 meeting from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock. This was previously approved on January 7th, 2015 at the organizational meeting. Item I-4, that the Board of Education approves a lease agreement with the Twinsburg VFW, Post 4929 of Twinsburg, for the Cost of Freedom Tribute, the traveling wall exhibit, which will be on our grounds from July 1st through July 5th. This lease agreement was sent to the board under separate cover. And item I-5, that the Board of Education approves a proposal for an overnight extended student trip for the Great Expectations Show Choir from Twinsburg High School to travel to Waterloo, Indiana to participate in the DeKalb Show Choir Invitational, which is from February 14 through 15, 2015. The trip will be paid for by the students with assistance from the Twinsburg Vocal Music Boosters. This trip request was sent to the board under separate cover. Is there a motion for these 5 agenda items, please?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Davis, a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Felber. Just a note on the board meeting dates, the April meeting is being moved from the 22nd to the 15th, and I believe it is actually the 15th on the district calendar that was printed last year, but at our organizational meeting, we had set it at the 22nd. So we're actually moving the second April meeting to the 15th, and then the July start time is just moving from 7 to 6. Any other comments on these 5 items?
Maybe just a little color commentary more for Cost of Freedom, for those that may not be aware. This is an event that is going to be spanned over 4 days, 24 hours in July, so July 2nd through the 5th. We're expecting 10 to 15,000 folks. This event is to honor veterans, firefighters, police, first responders. And for those that are not going to be out of town and looking for something to do, and I'm looking at a lot of jerseys right now, it's going to be a lot of bodies that need to help to get this off. And there's going to be an app coming out that I think you're familiar with. But for right now, they are collecting names. And if you are interested in volunteering in any way, there will be credit for the students that need it. costoffreedomvolunteers@gmail.com. I know that is a very long email, but costoffreedomvolunteers@gmail. And that would be answered, and then there'll be more information forthcoming. So we appreciate the support from the administration. I happen to be on the committee from a media standpoint, and appreciate the support from the administration. I know Mrs. Powers is the daughter of a veteran, and I'm sure there's many others in the room, and it's going to be quite an event. So don't leave town.
Great. Any other discussion points on these agenda items? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Felber,
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron,
Yes.
Mr. Stuver.
Yes. And those 5 items pass 4-0. Do my colleagues or any of the administrators have anything for us tonight under miscellaneous?
I just have a quick plug for the Twinsburg Community Theater this weekend and next weekend. Many of our students and community members are going to be putting on the show Shrek, which should be a really fun show. The costumes are amazing, the acting's superb. They put a lot of time and hours into this, and wouldn't take place without the volunteers too that are part of the theater. And the first show will be this Saturday at 7 o'clock, and then there's 5 following shows, Sunday and then the following weekend. So after you go to the TAB wrestling tournament next weekend, maybe stop by and see the play.
Right. And since you said the TAB tournament, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We do a very, very large, well-run, well-organized wrestling tournament at Twinsburg High School, and it is a junior high tournament. It is one of the biggest and best junior high wrestling tournaments in the country. So in order for that to happen, the Twinsburg Athletic Boosters depends on a lot of volunteers. If you are available on Friday or Saturday of this weekend, you don't have to sign up. If you did, that's great. If not, show up. They will give you a job. So it's a great weekend. It's nice to see our kids participating in the activity, and also it gives anyone an opportunity to volunteer. So if you're free this weekend, come on up to THS, and they'll give you a job. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. I've done it for many years, and it's great to be a part of it, and it's great for our kids. We raise a lot of money for the Booster Club. Typically, they raise between $10,000 and $12,000. So without community support, it won't happen. So if you're available, come on up. Even you guys, they'll take help from anybody, kids, adults. They have a lot of jobs to fill. So, and I also just wanted to say welcome, Coach Bell. We're very excited to have you on board. I know the kids are very excited. I'm a football mom as well, so we're just really happy to have this opportunity to have you on board with us. So thank you.
So before we adjourn, I would just like to say that we've got a few folks here. I would like to take the opportunity after we adjourn to kind of mingle a little bit, maybe take a few more pictures. If there's some pictures we want to take with the football team and the football coach, please feel free to do so. We also need to spend a little time with our transportation supervisor. We actually have 2 folks here tonight that are in jobs that become rather highly visible. You know, when we're transporting kids, the phone's ringing because the bus was 2 minutes late or whatever it happens to be, and we get it. We understand what you're, and of course you were a board member, so you know what this is about. And yes, thank you and welcome to our district, Mr. Bell. We look forward to having you as a teacher and a football coach. Thank you very much.
Chad, you didn't pull up a bus for a photo op?
I thought about that.
Take his license.
I would like to make the motion that the Board of Education adjourn at 8:21 p.m. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Roll call, please.
Mr. Stuver,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Felber,
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron.
Yes.
Thank you for attending. The board meeting is now adjourned.